The Buffalo Bills. Against the New York Jets last Sunday, the Bills' defense simply picked up where they left off a year ago. New York failed to register a single point. The Bills' offense, on the other hand, rolled behind blocks that, while not held very long, still enabled Joe Cribbs to find the end zone. Buffalo spent the afternoon proving that their offense is as well-rounded as any in the league. And Joe Ferguson passed for 236 yards and 2 touchdowns. No longer a sneaky Cinderella squad, Buffalo is a good, solid football team, much like the Atlanta Falcons. And if their 31-0 rout of the Jets is any indication, 1981 could be a long season for AFC Eastern opponents. On paper, the New York Jets appear to have enough talent to make the playoffs. In the standings, they're now 0-2. Last week, they jumped out to a 2-touchdown lead over Cincinnati. But to borrow an old expression, these 81 Bengals are a new breed of cat. For the second straight week, the guys in the Easter Sunday bonnets fell behind early, then rallied to win. The go-ahead score came late in period 4 on this touchdown by Archie Griffin, and it gave Cincinnati a 1-point lead. Less than a minute later, a New York fumble ensured the Bengals a victory. Number 72, Mike St. Clair's 12-yard jaunt increased the Bengal lead to 8. And though the Jets did rally for a last-second touchdown, it was academic, as Cincinnati recorded its second consecutive come-from-behind win. Who knows? Perhaps they'll become the new Cardiac Kids. Since 1971, the Pittsburgh Steelers appeared to be showing signs of age. But in Three Rivers Stadium against the New York Jets, Jack Lambert, number 58, reignited the old Steeler fire. Quarterback Terry Bradshaw followed suit and teamed up time and again with the familiar number 82, John Stallworth. As the Steeler press guide points out, Stallworth is a real estate executive in the offseason. On this day in Pittsburgh, he and his receiving partners took 15 receptions and bought up 242 yards of prime riverfront property. While established Steelers came back to life, the Jets showed little sign of it. An exception was rookie running back Freeman McNeil, number 24, who scored the visitors' only touchdown of the afternoon. While the Jets struggled for their one touchdown, the Steelers ran up 343 yards on the ground, most ever against the Jet team, and scored 5 rushing touchdowns, 2 by Frank Pollard, number 44. Pittsburgh's 38-10 win was a clear sign that there's plenty of life left in the Steel City. No one ever said New York fans aren't opinionated, especially when their team is 0-3. However, against Houston, quarterback Richard Todd showed Jet fans just how wrong they can be. Todd picked apart the Oilers' secondary, completing 25 of 39 passes for over 300 yards and 3 touchdowns. His performance proved that the Jet offense can do more than just look good on paper. Todd's favorite target of the afternoon was wide receiver Wesley Walker. Walker, number 85, had his best day ever as a Jet, catching 8 passes for 128 yards and 2 touchdowns, including this score giving the Jets a 21-10 halftime lead. Oiler quarterback Ken Stabler tightened the game with a short toss to 00 Ken Burrow that turned into a 70-yard touchdown. Stabler, often criticized for his inability to throw the long ball, didn't have that problem against New York. He was too busy running from Mark Gastineau, number 99, to throw the ball, period. Gastineau trapped Stabler 4 times, and his performance typified the Jet defense as they hit with the enthusiasm and recklessness of a high school football team on their first day of contact. The defense secured New York's 33-17 win, and the Houston Oilers were reminded that the AFC Central is not the only tough division in football.
The Jets, a nemesis team for the Miami Dolphins, going against the then unbeaten and untied Dolphins. Richard Todd in the early going, red hot, throwing to Jerome Barkham, the tight end. Touchdown, 7-0, the Jets. But Miami struck right back. David Woodley, the second-year man from Louisiana State, split T option. Look at him go all the way down to the Jets' 3-yard line. That set up an Andra Franklin 2-yard touchdown run, 7-7. Still the first quarter. Richard Todd throwing to the speedster Wesley Walker from California, coming back to his all-pro form. That was good for 46 yards. After that, Todd threw to Walker for a touchdown. But Don Strock in for the injured Woodley. Threw this one to a man who had a simply superb day, Nat Moore, number 89. And with 3rd and goal to go on the 6th, Don Strock threw again. And this tied it up at 14 because Nat Moore, look at his stats on the day. He set a Dolphins single-game record. Richard Todd trailing 21-14, 4th quarter. Throwing right there, tipped by Blackwood, tipped by Taylor, but Wesley Walker had it, a miraculous touchdown, 21-all. After that, Miami had the ball, 2nd and 8 on the Jets' 23. And here goes Don Strock again. The young man, now a veteran from Virginia Tech. Once again, the irrepressible Nat Moore. 28-21 Miami. Jets ball. And Richard Todd, what a day he had. throwing that pass. Didn't look like it could be caught. Bobby Jones, surrounded by two defenders, took it, went in, 28-28. And that set up an overtime game. And that would create some controversy because in the overtime, the Jets dominated, but elected to run the football with less than a minute remaining twice. Leahy trying a 47-yard field goal. You see the chagrin, the despair, wide against the wind. So it was 28-28, a tie game.
Another young team struggling to establish themselves are the feisty New York Jets. A disappointing 1-3-1 start may have dimmed the Jets' playoff chances, but against the New England Patriots, 8 sacks and 4 interceptions were signs that the Jet defense is putting things together. Darrell Ray's 43-yard interception return was one of 4 Jet touchdowns, the first by the Jet defense this season. The other 3 were the work of quarterback Richard Todd. The Jets' critics say Todd is the weak link on an otherwise well-balanced team. Last Sunday, Todd's passes were picture perfect, and his receivers were razor sharp. Tight end Jerome Barkham pulled in 2 of Todd's touchdown passes. His other catch was a working definition of concentration, a tipped pass that Barkham stayed with all the way. Watching the Jets dismantle the Patriots secondary, one had to wonder how a team with so much offensive firepower can sometimes play so badly. Last Sunday, they could do little wrong. Nonetheless, the New York Jets' true identity remains a mystery. On a good day, the Jets can score points with anybody. On other days, they can hardly score at all. Last Sunday was one of those good days, a 28-24 win over the New England Patriots, the Jets' second win in 1981. Joe Plecko and the rambunctious Jets have burst out from the bottom of their division and, despite their enthusiasm, did not lose their heads against the Buffalo Bills. The Jets, anxious to avenge a humiliating 31-0 loss to the Bills in the first game of the season, wasted little time displaying their intentions. Number 42, Bruce Harper's touchdown typified the Jets' explosive offensive performance. Another look at the run shows that Harper's path was opened by the block of number 35, Mike Augustiniak. New York showed little respect for the AFC's number 2 ranked defense by gaining more total yards against Buffalo than any team this season. That included a Richard Todd touchdown pass to Jerome Barkham, number 83. However, quarterback Joe Ferguson willfully earned the Bills a measure of self-esteem. Ferguson, the NFL's 3rd leading passer behind Craig Morton and Dan Fouts, threw for over 240 yards and 2 scores. Late in the third period, Ferguson's touchdown pass to number 80, Jerry Butler, tightened the game at 20-14. But the Jets were not about to let another win slip away. And moments later, when Mike Augustiniak fumbled, Bobby Jones, number 89, alertly scooped up the loose football and went 61 yards for the game-clinching touchdown. New York's 33-14 win boosted their record to 3 wins, 3 losses, 1 tie. After beginning 1981 with 3 straight losses, the Jets, who sometimes appear to be right out of the cast of One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, are making a bid for the top spot in the AFC East. Trouble always seems to pop up for the New York Jets whenever the Seattle Seahawks are the opponent. Ever since the Seahawks were first hatched back in 1976, they have never lost to the Jets. And last week in New York, they sought their 5th win in the series. But when the Jets' Richard Todd and number 85 Wesley Walker teamed for a long touchdown, the jinx appeared to be over. But after a penalty nullified the score, the Seahawks quickly reasserted their mastery. 2 touchdowns by number 80, Steve Largent, paced a 19-3 Seattle win. The Jets hope to rebound this week when they renew their inter-city rivalry with the Giants. An interstate rivalry flared up last week in California. New York, New York. The song says if you can make it there, you can make it anywhere. Get to the top of the heap in Gotham and they'll toast you from Bowery to Broadway. But fall from grace and you're yesterday's news. Last week, New York's Jets and New York's Giants sought to become kings of the hill in a town that loves a winner. The Jets' Richard Todd and Wesley Walker, number 85, made a spirited grab for the crown. But in seeking Big Apple bragging rights, the Jets encountered problems when punter Chuck Ramsey displayed hands that were nothing to brag about. For the second straight week, the Giants' special teams produced a touchdown as number 28, Beasley Reese, recovered Ramsey's miscue in the end zone. But when the Giants attempted to mount an offense, Phil Simms was frustrated by a Jets pass rush known as the New York Sack Exchange. This unit accounted for 9 sacks. If the Stock Exchange was as healthy as the Sack Exchange, the recession would come to an abrupt end. Especially healthy was number 73, Joe Klecko, who made short work of Simms' pass protection. Klecko registered 3 sacks, while 4 more were turned in by number 99, Mark Gastineau, who, like Klecko, simply out-muscled Giant blockers. While the Jets' pass rush pummeled Simms, the knockout punch was delivered by defensive back Darrell Ray, number 28. Ray traveled 64 yards with his 6th interception of the season and capped a 26-7 Jets victory. While the Jets became the toast of New York, New York, the Houston Oilers were seeking control of a different kind. Joe Klecko, Ben Rudolph, Abdul Salam, and Mark Gastineau. Meet the executive officers of the New York Sack Exchange. These gentlemen pushed their stock higher on the national board against the Baltimore Colts and took over the NFL lead in sacks. While the Jet defense limited the Colts to 14 points, Jet quarterback Richard Todd got bullish in the wide-open spaces of the Baltimore secondary. His return, 6 points each from 3 different benefactors. Wide receiver Lamb Jones cashed in his first touchdown pass of the season, and counterpart Wesley Walker, number 85, recorded his 8th. A third quarter tally to Kevin Long helped deal Baltimore their 9th consecutive defeat. For the Jets, the 41-14 win upped their record to 5-4-1. The worst record in pro football belongs to the puzzling, luckless Colts, but it almost makes sense, since it's always been bad luck to hang a horseshoe upside down. With just 2 Patriot wins this season, 16,000 paying fans refused to brave the elements and witness the New York Jet front four prove that when it rains, it pours. The league's best front line against the pass deluged the Patriots with 8 sacks, including 4 by number 99, Mark Gastineau. Gastineau's fiery spirit helped to inspire the play of the Jet offensive line, as center Joe Fields, number 60, and trapping guard Stan Waldmore, number 70, paved wide glide paths for Jet running backs. Number 44, Tom Newton's score marked one of 2 New York rushing touchdowns as the Jets went on to win 17-6. And with just 1 loss in their last 8 games, New York stands as the AFC's hottest ball club. To star in the NFL, an athlete must overcome all possible obstacles, and last week, Jet quarterback Richard Todd proved he was a star of gallant proportions. With New York vying for first place in the AFC East, Todd played every down with a cracked rib and bravely stood up to a blitzing Miami defense. With Miami applying constant pressure like this second quarter's safety, the Jet offense could only muster 3 field goals in the game's first 57 minutes. But Todd went on to prove he was the man for the moment. With New York trailing 15-9, Todd masterfully moved the Jets downfield. Todd guided New York to Miami's 11-yard line, and with 16 seconds remaining, he found number 83, Jerome Barkham, open for the winning touchdown. After 6 years of famine and ridicule, Todd had led the Jets to their most important victory in the post-Namath era. By beating the Dolphins 16-15, the Jets moved into a first-place tie with Miami with a 7-4-1 record, and are now on the verge of their first winning season since 1969. After being treated as the AFC's doormat for years, these rejuvenated Jets have become a team of Cinderella charm. Flushing Meadows, New York, where the New York Jets have turned civilized citizens into frenzied football fanatics. The driving force behind this growing hysteria are the members of the New York Sack Exchange, currently the NFL's most unstoppable pass rushing unit. The inspirational leader is defensive end Mark Gastineau. Last week, as usual, Gastineau whipped Shea Stadium into an uproar. Baltimore Colt quarterback Burt Jones suffered the consequences as the Colts failed to score a point. New York added 5 more sacks to their league-leading total and forced the Colts to turn the ball over on downs all afternoon. Eventually, Baltimore's special teams got tired, and that's when the always dangerous Bruce Harper got loose. Harper's 46-yard return set up one of 2 Jet touchdowns. Both were scored by rookie running back Freeman McNeil. The Jets won 25-0 to remain tied for first place in the AFC East. And how did those distinguished young brokers react to another big win in the sack market? They're bullish on victory these days in Shea Stadium. And when the members of the New York Sack Exchange talk, the rest of the NFL is beginning to listen. Normally, a 4-9 record does not provide the impetus for pregame fun and games. But on this day, the Seahawks faced the Jets, a team they had beaten 5 straight times. In fact, Seattle had never lost to the Jets. The Seahawks were without Jim Zorn, however. In his place was free agent Dave Craig. And it didn't take long for the Jets defense to initiate Craig in the ways of NFL defense. But the second-year quarterback from small Milton College proved resilient, teaming with none other than Steve Largent, number 80. What was usually Zorn to Largent became Craig to Largent without losing a step. The new dynamic duo got some help from their friends. Theodis Brown, number 30, since his acquisition from St. Louis, has added the needed running dimension to the Seahawks offense. Against the Jets, Brown scored from 21 yards. On defense, the featured performer was Jacob Green. Green, number 79, helped shut down New York's ground game as the Seahawks controlled the Jets' explosive offense. But with Seattle leading 20-16 in the fourth quarter, the Jets got a break. Number 83, Jerome Barkin's reception of a tipped ball led to a score, and New York went ahead 23-20. For Seattle, no need to worry. Craig simply dropped back and threw a 57-yard touchdown to Largent as the Seahawks rebounded to win 27-23. A new hero had stepped forth in the Pacific Northwest. With his performance, Craig joined the growing number of reserve quarterbacks who have exploded onto the NFL scene in 1981. Another is in... challenge in mud-drenched Cleveland last Saturday. Walt Michaels' Jets faced a Browns club that they'd never beaten. And with Brian Sipe passing for 280 yards, it appeared that the status quo would be maintained. Sipe chipped away at a Jets team that was mired in the muck of mediocrity for most of the contest. But New York eventually put its best foot forward and shook off the Cleveland threat. The Jets came clean on 2 Richard Todd scoring passes, including a 28-yarder to Lamb Jones, number 80. And they stayed in the playoff picture with a 14-13 win. While New York's teams were thinking... In the Big Apple, big dreams can come true, and on the season's final weekend, both New York teams have a chance to make pro football history. Only one man on the crosstown Jets even knows what a New York championship feels like. Guard Randy Rasmussen, the last remnant of the 1969 Super Bowl champions. It's been 11 years since the Jets have qualified for postseason play. And they can clinch a wild card berth at Shea Stadium if folks like quarterback Richard Todd can continue their winning ways. But their task may be nearly as difficult as the Giants, for they are facing another hungry team, the Green Bay Packers. Green Bay hasn't been to the playoffs since 1967 when Vince Lombardi was still the head coach. And the Packers can make the playoffs if they win today. So to all you New Yorkers who think you've seen everything, well, you've never seen anything like this. For the first time ever, both the Giants and Jets can clinch playoff spots in the same year. It's the greatest football weekend in New York history, as 2 former also-rans reach for greatness. It's a Big Apple doubleheader. The Giants versus the Dallas Cowboys and the Jets versus the Green Bay Packers on the NFL Game of the Week. Shea Stadium, Sunday, December 20th, 1981. The wind chill factor -3 degrees. The New York Jets prepared for their most important game since 1969. If they could defeat the visiting Packers, they would secure a playoff berth for the crosstown Giants, who had defeated Dallas the day before, and for themselves. On the game's 4th play, the Jets seized the initiative. Rookie punter Ray Stackowitz had his attempt blocked, and with a first down at the Packer 11, the Jets called on their rookie, running back Freeman McNeil. McNeil's determined running got New York close, and number 33, Kevin Long, got them 6. The sparks for the Pack have been receivers John Jefferson, number 83, and his pass-catching buddy James Lofton. J.J. has brought a burst of energy to Green Bay, and Lofton has turned in an all-pro year as well. But today, the two would be rendered helpless, for the Jets had an even more impressive dynamic duo. Mark Gastineau, number 99, and Joe Klecko, number 73, the NFL's premier pass-rushing pair. Each with 18 sacks, each with a burning desire to pound the Jets into the playoffs. After his sacks, Joe Klecko merely saunters away from the scene. Gastineau, however, enacts a variety of tribal dances to celebrate his trophy. Packer quarterback Lynn Dickey cared little for either, but received both. 9 times throughout the day, he fell victim to what has been coined as the New York Sack Exchange. If the wonders of Wall Street weren't wrecking Dickey, a pair of Penn Staters were. Both are former Nittany Lion linebackers who have solidified the Jet defense. One is the recipient of the Jets' Man of the Year award, Greg Buttle, number 51. Greg Buttle is as fine a linebacker as any in the league, and his teammate Lance Mell, number 56, is quickly becoming one. Both would have made their Penn State coach Joe Paterno proud. Mell's interception gave New York the ball at the Jet 40, and 8 plays later it appeared that they had scored once more. Great Richard Todd play action and pump faking and a super catch by Johnny Lamb Jones, number 80, were all wiped out by a holding penalty. Instead of going into quarter number 2 with a 2-touchdown advantage, the Jets would have to settle for a slim 7-point lead. Rather than unsettle the Jets, Jones' erased touchdown seemed to inspire them. Leading by 7-3 early in the second quarter, the New Yorkers unleashed a beast of a drive downfield. Moving 80 yards in 21 plays in a drive that ate up most of the entire quarter, New York caught a real break on a play where Richard Todd hit Bruce Harper for a 12-yard gain. Harper had the ball jarred loose, but the referees ruled that he was down before the fumble. Watch and decide for yourself. With 2 minutes to play, Harper was called on to finish the 10-minute march downfield. This time, there would be no fumble. The Jets now led 14-3 with time running out in the first half. On a frozen field where Buffalo's O.J. Simpson historically gained his 2,000th yard in 1973, the Jets were transforming Shea into a very special place once more. New Yorkers were still fighting the hangovers obtained from the dramatic Giant victory 24 hours before, and suddenly they would be partying all over again because it was time for another big play in the Big Apple. Johnny Lamb Jones streaked down the right sideline with 47 seconds left to play in the half, and the rest was history. The Jets suddenly blew open a tight game and led 21-3. All it took was a quick count and a perfect toss by Richard Todd. An excellent concentration by Johnny Lamb Jones. The Jets outgained the Packers 219 yards to a mere 54 in the first half. Indeed, they had come a long way since the early weeks of the season when they were blown out in their first 3 games. Up by 18 with 30 minutes to play, they stared the playoffs in the face for the first time in over a decade.
Just in time for Mother's Day, Zales has a great selection of diamonds for just...
All of the third quarter and most of the fourth would be ruled by the Jet and Packer defenses. Hard-hitting, chilling winds, and brute force made scoring impossible. vaunted Packer passing attack was bottled up, and big plays by the Pack D froze the score at 21-3 on a frozen scoreboard in front of nearly 60,000 frozen fans. 5.5 minutes remained, and the Jets had the game won. Still not a solitary fan left the stadium. They were bathing in playoff bliss. Fans wearing paper bags earlier in the season had been transformed into hard-nosed New Yorkers in hard hats. For those who waited it out in the cold, there came the final New York hurrah in a New York weekend to end all New York weekends. Wesley Walker, number 85, finished this grand day with a 38-yard touchdown catch that made the score New York 28, Green Bay 3. It was time to uncork the champagne and then study the Buffalo Bill game films, because the Jets had earned a playoff spot and the right to host the Bills in the AFC wildcard game on the following Sunday. Another clutch toss by Todd and a great catch of a low ball by speedy Wesley Walker. As the jubilant Jets prepared to dance the night away, the Packers were left with hollow thoughts of what might have been. They have reason to be proud, for by virtue of their strong finish, they were in the playoff chase for the full 16 weeks and can now look optimistically towards next season. On this day, they were simply done in by big plays and a big rush. All that was left for Jet fans was to watch the clock wind the time down and to watch their prize group of pass rushers suffocate Lynn Dickey one final time. Finally, one of the most fantastic weekends in the history of New York sports came to an end. The Giants are in the playoffs and will travel to Philadelphia to face the Eagles. The Jets are in the playoffs to face yet another New York team, the Buffalo Bills. There is no doubt that the Empire State will be well represented in postseason play. And who knows, maybe there will even be a Giant Jet Super Bowl. If this is how New Yorkers celebrate when their teams earn a playoff spot, how do you suppose they'd celebrate an all-New York Super Bowl? It would probably be like experiencing 100 Walt Frazier jump shots, 50 Reggie Jackson home runs in September, and a citywide blackout, all at one time. For the New York Jets, Sunday had been a long time coming. Not since the 1969 season, when the Jets were generaled by Joe Namath, have New York's Green Berets engaged in playoff battle. In 1981, the Jets resembled that army of old by winning with passing and strong defense. But when they received the opening kickoff, Shea Stadium must have felt like Dunkirk. Buffalo's number 26, Charles Romes, converted a Bruce Harper fumble into a touchdown. And before 17 seconds had elapsed, the Bills were ahead of the Jets by 7. In the season opener, early game domination led the Bills to a 31-0 romp over the Jets. But New York rebounded with 9 wins in their last 11 games. With Richard Todd throwing brilliantly in the clutch, the Jets hope for more of the same in the playoffs. Unfortunately for Todd and the Jets, they faced a Buffalo defense that allowed the fewest passing yards in the AFC. By shuffling as many as 6 defensive backs into the lineup, Buffalo forced Todd to throw into difficult coverage. And number 28, Rufus Bess, came away with one of 2 Bills interceptions in the first half. Like the Jets, the Bills are also a team that has succeeded behind their quarterback, as Buffalo's Joe Ferguson set a team record with 3,600 yards in 1981. With the Bill defense affording him numerous possessions, Ferguson immediately took to the air. Ferguson connected on 12 of his first 15 tosses, and with speedsters like number 82 Frank Lewis in the lineup, short patterns can turn into 50-yard touchdowns. Lewis gave Buffalo their second touchdown by finding the seam in the secondary and then exploding by his competition. Ferguson consistently aimed for the veteran Lewis, whose 11 pro years equals the experience compiled by the entire starting Jets secondary. Like the Bills, the Jets threw to their speedy receiver, Wesley Walker, but that lofty plan quickly crashed to earth. Walker's drop pass denied the Jets a scoring opportunity, and Jet misfortune also arose on defense. Number 99, Mark Gastineau, is a major stockholder in the New York Sack Exchange, whose fierce pass rush challenged the solid walls of Fort Knox. Gastineau did manage to get to Ferguson, but instead of falling on top of the ball, Gastineau unwisely tried to take the ball on the run. For New York, the first half was a dirge as the Jets consistently squandered away opportunities. Meanwhile, the Bills simply moved along, singing that cheery refrain, Ferguson to Lewis. Lewis grabbed 7 passes for 158 yards, and his second touchdown boosted the Bills to a shocking 24-0 lead by the middle of the second quarter. Fans feared a blowout, but those skeptics showed little faith in the comeback spirit that got New York to the playoffs. Reserve tight end Mickey Schuler came in for injured Jerome Barkham, and Schuler's first catch of the season put the Jets on the scoreboard. With Richard Todd drawing in the Bills secondary with a pump fake, Schuler beat single coverage. Schuler's touchdown made the score 24-7 with 2 minutes left in the first half. But instead of running out the clock, Buffalo elected to try for another score, a decision Jet linebacker Greg Buttle made regrettable. Buttle's interception brought the ball to the Buffalo 16 and gave the Jets an opportunity to get back into contention. The Jet offense was stonewalled on the next 2 plays, and on third down, Todd again tested the Bills with his reserve tight end. Todd's pass was just inches off the mark, and the Jets were forced to settle for a field goal. New York went into halftime trailing by 2 touchdowns. But with 30 minutes and playoff elimination left in the balance, the Jets were in need of their greatest comeback in this comeback season. For the first half of play, Joe Ferguson's 211 yards passing had taken advantage of 3 Jet turnovers and built a 14-point Buffalo lead. The obvious strategy: stick with what you do best. Put the ball in the air. But an aroused New York pass rush turned the turnover tables the Jets' way. Ferguson succumbed to the pressure and delivered a belated Christmas gift to Jet cornerback Donald Dykes, number 26. It was Dykes' only interception of the year, but one of 3 interceptions Joe Ferguson threw in the second half. Nevertheless, number 12 insisted on throwing the ball and became a victim of the Jets' only second-half sack by Joe Klecko, number 73. It was the New York Sack Exchange's final transaction of the season. New York held Buffalo scoreless in the third period while scoring 3 points of their own. But when the Bills got the ball back in the final quarter, they put the passing game on hold and went wide right with running back Joe Cribbs, number 20. Cribbs used his speed to get outside, then won the 45-yard dash to the goal line to stretch the Bill lead to 31-13. When many Jet fans staged a foot race to the parking lot, they missed a finish that shaped up as one of the great comebacks in playoff history. In the final 10 minutes, the Jets reeled off 30 plays to the Bills' 7. One from Richard Todd to Bobby Jones, number 89. The 30-yard touchdown pass cut the Buffalo lead to 31-20 with 7 minutes remaining. New York scored quickly on their next possession. Instrumental in the drive, tight end Mickey Schuler, number 82. It was Schuler's best day as a pro, 6 catches for 116 yards. The Jets covered 52 yards in 8 plays, and a 1-yard score by Kevin Long closed the gap to 31-27. When the Jet defense again forced the Bills to punt, Todd's offense took over for their final drive. On 9 consecutive pass plays, the Jets drove to the Buffalo 27 when it appeared the game was over. An interception by strong safety Steve Freeman, number 22, was nullified by a holding penalty against the Bills, and the Jets were given another life. 2 short completions brought the ball to the Buffalo 11, and just 11 seconds remain when Richard Todd dropped back to throw his last pass of 1981. Safety Bill Simpson made the big play when it had to be made, putting an end to the Jets' astonishing fourth quarter surge. Buffalo 31, New York 27. The Jets almost wrote a great American classic. For them, it was an unfinished novel. But the Bills liked the way it ended and plan a sequel this Sunday in Cincinnati, where they take on the Bengals in the next chapter of the 1981 playoff story.